let's start. And also for the benefit of the people in Facebook. So first of all, Willie, thanks for coming. This is my second exhibition of the collection, and it started as is the art bug, right? When I did the first one, and it was highly successful, especially at least highly successful for me. It was quite impressive. The numbers on the people that attended that first talk was pretty encouraging. And then obviously I started thinking about like what to do next. Also because as I have explained before, when you start collecting, you start like self evaluating the purpose and the reason why you actually decide to keep and hold these pieces together. And then you start when you start like looking into it, doing introspection, you realize that there's always like a story behind. So I decided to go ahead with the second exhibition, with this tell a second story, which is something that I did because I went through that time, right? I was born in the 75, so I'm like a late Gen Xer, so I kind of like I caught up with the millennials, and especially I saw like they are bringing and I saw how that influenced the world and eventually art expressions. So first of all, I have to say that most of you perhaps are relate to millennials. So do let me wrong if my reading is incorrect. I don't. Or secondly, this is on personal interpretation. Certainly, I'm not aiming to offend anybody, or these are just my own personal interpretations. I might be right, I might be wrong, but this is the reason these works resonate to me for this particular reason. They have that resonance, and this is the reason I decided to collect, and most importantly, put them together to tell a story. So, and thirdly, I think, I'm more than happy to do it more actively, more like a Q&A. If you guys tell me that if my reading is right or wrong, do let me know. I'm more than happy to actually find new interpretations, because actually that will help me skew or perhaps polish my collecting criteria, because I'm constantly looking for new works. For example, lately I have been investigating a lot on activism. I think it's going to be a major force, and I see a lot of interesting figurations coming up right now. So by all means, I'm like a sponge, always looking for information. So sure.
I just like to say something. I think that's one of the most exciting things about art, is the ability to exchange ideas and culture between one another. So, especially on such an international platform too. So it's just a pleasure to be able to be in here and see the perspectives that you have, and then also kind of
absolutely
along the way.
Absolutely, you make a very good point, because this is like the reason why I found this or the millennials this exhibition so intriguing is because I found that this is the first time that I see that the trend, like the social trend, is very uniform globally, and I have to. And when I start thinking about it, I think I relate to that to television mostly, because prior to television was radio, but radio was primarily state controlled and it was very localized. There was never like a global, like a mass transmitted radio program. It was always like a localized to the particular country. But with TV, there was clearly the possibility of culture being broadcasted globally. And you can actually claim that to perhaps the Western dominant, or especially to the U.S. dominance, that they really use the TV to disseminate consumerism. You start. Perhaps people that have read. There's a very good book that came 30 years ago. Is the War on Colas, which was is a book that actually is a business book, but it describes that the commercial tension between Pepsi Cola and Coca Cola back in the 80s, and where they start getting all the TV stars and so on. And that's when they changed, when advertising really changed from advertising a product to advertising lifestyles. And that really happened was because it was possible to disseminate it across through massively, and the TV certainly helped that. Especially the programs that targeted the youth at that time was, for example, MTV. and all these programs that were catchy music and everything that really disseminated. And then, of course, we had the pop culture, soap operas, and so on. So, and this is something, especially when I'm going to talk about urbanism, I think this is something that that's when I see that mass called social impact, that uniform social impact had really became mainstream globally. Yep.
I don't mean to interrupt. If it's messing up your flow, I can stop. But just one little fun side note is the founder of MTV has actually been walking through Artgate before.
Oh, really?
Moses
okay,
Neimer.
That is that is great. So that is great. So tell her that this exhibition had I did part of my research was I started from there from the MTV and the impact on that TV had. Which was one of my main struggles because for this one, actually, I did extensive research and tried to write something in such a little tiny piece of wall. Was such a struggle. And I did this video, the video that I put, it tried to condense it so shortly was very difficult because for me, this topic is very heavy. Perhaps it was more difficult to write than the first one. The first one, I think, historically, like the Cold War and the consumerism was better documented. This one took me a little bit more of a self introspection, tried to connect the dots to a point that actually I changed my quote in Instagram now. So like I'm not inspiring me. It gets me out of bed, but now I'm trying to connect the dots. And this exhibition really helped me to put that together. So I start there. I think so. I want to put that tone. I start there. Let's say from the 80s, right, when the TV and advertising, especially, is going mainstream, is going globally. So I see a cultural advertising that went mainstream all over the world, from China to Africa to the Western world. It was very uniform. Brands like, perhaps MTV, you can mention about MTV to perhaps a millennial, and the person will relate what it is, no matter where the millennial is. It could be in Africa, it could be in Australia, it could be, I don't know, perhaps even in China, someone that perhaps they live overseas, they know what it is. So it's that uniformity. So on that evolution, I saw that there were three particular figurations that I saw coming up, especially when millennials when they start becoming too adult, and I quote that. I started looking at data 2010 when I saw like the last batch of millennials really becoming adults. By becoming adults, for me, I try to analyze it from a more commercial point of view, or because eventually, money is the blood of society, and when they start becoming adults, it means that they have both that decision power, but as well as the economic power to consume and to buy. And one of those things is to buy things that they appreciate. And when you have a market willing to buy, certainly you're going to have the other side. You're going to have a market willing to produce. And I did notice that a lot of artists, there were quite a number of artists that started exploring with nostalgia. Same thing happened in the especially in my generation in the Gen X with like Smashing Pumpkins and this beautiful song 1979, I think, which is exploring the topic of nostalgia. But I see that resurgence coming again, but I saw it quite differently. So the first work that I have here, which is on nostalgia, is the works by a very young Spanish artist called Adriana Oliver, which is a good friend of mine. This work have a beautiful story. And I think her works, I don't know if people are familiar with her works, she explores this imagery of nostalgia. His works are very nostalgic. I have this sense of introversion, that sense of an admiration for a period that was. And this is the thing. One of the things that again, do let me wrong, and I don't know. I think it's too late for her to be in. But I sense a lot of her works are, her early works. This is actually from her new set. At the moment, she has a show in Tokyo with Target, and her new sets of works have her characters are primarily from the 50s, 60s, which also relates to the second set of nostalgic works, which is that is like a period that was very well sold through TV, right? I think the boomers did have, and I personally believe that even in politics, one of Donald Trump's agenda with Make America Great is clear that he's trying to leverage out of like the culture that we lived through the 50s and 60s, like the silent generation, which was the beautiful lady with the beautiful house and so on. So there was this projection that generation was actually somewhat like nicer or more affordable. And certainly we all know that this generation, especially in the 80s, the millennials, how the millennials received the world was pretty different of how it was advertised. It was very expensive. Everything was pretty much unaffordable. Everything was pretty much run on debt, student debt. I mean, all these complications with that income gap was primarily very wide, especially compared to the 60s. So I think I had that discussion with Adriana once, and we said like, yeah, I mean, she relates to there's this nostalgic. There's this feel of nostalgia to our generation that never lived, because there's this impression that period was better. And I do see that, for example, in the campaign of Donald Trump. I do that his entire Make America Great Again is try to leverage of those old times of the 60s, of that silent generation. So I found that topic absolutely interesting. It resonated to me. And when I discovered her body of works, and Adriana, I discovered her pretty much through Instagram. I was actually scanning works. I mean, I'm always looking for new artists and so on. And I saw her works. I saw her body of works that was about 5 years ago. She was very young at that time and didn't have like the impact that she has now. And then we decided to start working together. So I collected a set of works. This one is actually one of her first works from the series that really resonated me. This one, the one to the left, this is called All That I Know. I think in my opinion, is actually one of my favorite works because it is very intimate. It's really her. Adriana is a very sweet girl. She's really nice, kind. I also met her family. We were in Tokyo last year on a big show, because this is actually to the point of globalization. Adriana is from Spain. She worked primarily in Spain, but she had that I think the luck to be picked by some Japanese collector who referred her to a gallery in Japan, and now she's one of the hottest artists in the Japanese art scene right now. She is huge in Japan, huge, but not big, like huge. It's incredible. She's amazing, and of course I discovered her way before that, and I saw the entire transition. We also did a show in New York that it was sold to Japanese collectors. It's incredible. So she's actually found it absolutely unbelievable how she resonates to the culture that is so distant. And the only way to do that is you have to give thanks or blame the TV and that mass transmission of information. So that's the reason I decided to start the show with her. Make this piece the centerpiece, because I think it's quite meaningful, not only for me but also for the exhibition. And the whole story behind how millennials trying to depict something that is very ingrained in their personal in the personal psyche. How can they actually translate it out, express it in these figurative ways, and it makes it resonate to a culture that is so distant from hers, which is the Japanese culture. So that's why I'm like, when I told Adriana making this work the centerpiece, she was super happy. She was quite excited. She's really happy. I have to say that she has been really supportive. She helped me a lot with this show, and I'm also really happy for her, like how well she's doing. And I think she's going to be perhaps an artist for the future. Her new body of works also have this very Asian twist, because we were in Japan last year for the big show. And then I think she got that feel, and then she has these works about the family. I don't know if you can see it on her Instagram. The work is beautiful. I saw her when it was coming into production where there was a white canvas and going up all the way. So absolutely, I mean, she has that element of nostalgic. It works that resonate with generationally, that will resonate with people. This other work is I absolutely love it. The simplicity, is you can say that Jacqueline Kennedy or Jacqueline Onassis. You can actually relate to that. I mean, it has no name in itself, but is that elegance, that simplicity of the work, is that nostalgic, is that oversold that period was far better. What I like about this work, this work is two sets. She did one in red and the other one in blue, and there are no more of these works. I found out the blue one a bit much better because it's colder, is a bit more, I don't know, it's a bit more intense than the red one. The red I found that the color a bit distracting. The blue one is a bit more powerful. And this work for me is just so intense because of the minimalism behind it, but the power and the meaning that it has. Also because Jacqueline was a major figure that even to millennials it still resonate. I mean, it has this image of elegance and power, and I think it's quite clearly depicted. So I decided to buy these works. I actually bought it from a Canadian. She was working with a Canadian. I think it's based in Toronto, with Canadian gallery with Duran Marshall.
What's the name of the gallery?
And Andres is here. Andres, great friend. Yeah, it was fantastic, and I decided to. Sorry.
What was the name of the gallery?
I think it's Duran Marshall. If I mispronounce it, I mean, very likely.
Durand Marshall.
I think it's in Toronto, Montreal. I will need to.
It's
I think
in
it's in
Montreal.
because I bought
I
it on.
remember when I edited the work. I think Durand Marshall is in Montreal.
Yeah. So fantastic gallery. They have an interesting program, and by then she was collaborating with them. She just came from Art Miami, and Duran decided to Andres decided to bring her in her rooster, and then we start working together. And I remember I don't care. I want that piece. I need that piece. I need that piece. And I was actually calling Adriana. I said, like, I'm just ship it to Canada. I don't know. I'm going to trace it down. This story has this one has actually have I will tell you guys. I mean, I will tell the truth. If you ever ship through UPS, be careful with these guys, because UPS, something happened. We actually this work got stolen twice in UPS. They tried to, I don't know, steal it, and then it was a huge ordeal. Yeah, with the shipping. We were trying to ship it from Canada to Hong Kong, and it got lost twice. I mean, it was a huge ordeal, but eventually the people in UPS Singapore helped a lot. So eventually they managed to trace it twice. But we got it now. It's at home. It's nice. It's sweet. I love it. This work is both of them are. I really like them. So yeah, cheers for it, and I'm super happy. So the second set, I think this is the same exploring. I mean, I think you guys, Sam, I think she's is on Facebook, so that these two works explored the same period, I would say, but they approach it quite differently. I think Adriana is a bit more romantic towards her approach to nostalgia, interpretation of nostalgia. Sam, if everybody knows the works of Sam, she's she's an activist and she is more critical, and I think, and rightly so. We have a generation right now, the generation that is running politics globally is the boomer generation, and this is my interpretation. And Sam, please correct me if I'm wrong, but she's presenting this critic that we have a running generation, and then she's using those elements of that particular generation that what perhaps resonates with them, and then presents this criticism, the political tension that we see here, right? And I love the title of this work, Misplaced Biscuit. That it could be, I mean, and we see it in politics today, that it's just these rants and all this nonsensical tension that can end into a big catastrophe, which it has, right? I mean, we have people not necessarily pay attention to global warming. We already saw it in Australia. Now we see it in United States. We are very, I mean, the situation between China and United States is actually pretty tense, that it could actually end in a military conflict and so on. So you have this these I mean, let's call it as it is, these man babies trying to bring their egos out and eventually start they start creating a catastrophe out of a simple oops incident. So I when I saw this work, I just loved it. I remember when I discovered Sam, she resonated so hard with me. I was just crazy about her works, the way that she interprets, the way she's so out there, and she just says it like it's like a Barbara Kruger. She just goes and she doesn't care. Like, I need to say it, I need to expose it, I need to mention it. I just say it, and I think this is important for any artist to not to the artist to feel restricted in any way, especially on thought, just to say it because of what they're presenting us is a perspective that perhaps we are missing and we are not seeing. And with Sam, I do see that. There's another work that I love, which I actually got it recently, is that this politician, and she put this button on top that says panic. That work is I just love it. It's how simple it is, but how powerful the message it tells. This really old politician with that face that says panic, this panic button. So I think this figuration, personally, I found it very important in terms of activism. I think when I'm looking at activism, I'm actually looking at Sam's body of work. She's extremely prolific. She just produces. There was a show in Artsy not so long ago. I don't know, like 50 collages that she did. Big number.
It's still up there.
The number, and it's incredible. Like, she's doing this series on COVID. Yep.
Where did you discover Sam?
It was with hashtag, of course. Well, the hashtag it was okay. So it was
hashtag. Still a couple of pieces up in the other gallery.
Yeah, it was with hashtag. It was through Artgate VR. So that was about a couple of months ago, I think. We were doing one of these talks, and I was walking to the fair, and I saw the work, and I was like, "Wow, she's just amazing." So, yeah, we talked to the guys from Hashtag Gallery, and then one thing led to another one, and then eventually I managed to meet Sam, and she helped. Actually, Sam helped me a lot on drafting and reviewing this paper. I think she's like a co-author of the whole exhibition, because we were talking pretty much every Sunday for the past 2 months, I guess, pretty much bouncing ideas. I'm getting it right, I'm getting it wrong. And she has been really, I have to say that, I mean, half of this exhibition here is credited to Sam Heydt. So Sam, really, thank you very much. I really appreciate all the help and support that you did for this exhibition. So, and I'm a big fan of her works. And this one, I found it far more comical, but it's the same thing. Is this silly perception of boomers nostalgia, right? I mean, all these conspiracy theories that is going on, all the misinformation, all the noise that we see right now, that the QAnon, for example, that is all this ungrounded conspiracy theories. So I think this work is, for me, when I saw it, was like, it's just so cynical. It's I mean, it's a cynical. I found it a cynical realist work. Is just people that are so isolated but believe that they are somewhat they are isolated, but yet still belong to society, but they still believe on these different alternative realities, and how unfortunate that those perceptions are skewing, especially this upcoming election in the United States. You have a lot of misinformation, a lot of conspiracy theories. I found that very impressive. That you see all these rallies, right? That you see on TV, and the people holding these banners like a QAnon and then so on, and you have a candidate actually like fomenting that kind of behavior because he knows that he just wants to win. He foments his electorate. So I do find very troubling that sense of that we're losing, or these politicians are losing morale in exchange of power or in ego. And I found that as something that I personally, I think that has to be corrected in the future. I think we need to bring morality back into, especially to society, it needs to start with politics. We need to bring morality back into politics. And I think that's actually what this work tells me about is the lack of morality that we are seeing especially in late, and how millennials are expressing that, like that they're telling us this work is very critical. Like, look, I mean, what the world has become is this being run by these ample, ungrounded conspiracy theories that make no sense. But the underlying reason is that we're losing our sense of social morality by believing in all these different interpretations. And so I think that work for me is very is pretty. I mean, like the whole symbolism, the card, which is I won't say like perhaps a low-income family with that, like a smiling, they look great, but the UFO, which conveys, this is my interpretation, conveys this conspiracy theory behind, and that sense of disconnection to the rest of society. That's the reason why they look so isolated. That is a problem for me. That's a big problem that I see today, especially in U.S. politics. That division and isolation is to a point that is becoming a problem. So this was the first work on nostalgia, and when I collected the works, that's the reason I put them together. That was the story that I wanted to tell. These two different interpretation of that nostalgic movement. Then the second set is what I called urbanism, and this is quite interesting. The second movement that I saw especially from the 2000s and 2010s onwards was this transition from city from dwelling in the cities and it gradually moving into digital nativism, which is the deconstructions that we have here, the abstract urbanist abstract work that we have behind. But for me, the works of Julian Opie, of course, everybody, I think everybody's familiar with the works of Julian Opie. Is one of my favorite artists. I agree. He's not necessarily a millennial. I think he was born in the 50s, but I think his works are certainly skewed towards the developments that happened probably from the 90s onwards. Yeah, especially his urban works, which are like all these people walking around and doing exercises and his panels and so on. And this is something that for me, Julian Opie is the first artist that really captured that essence of that millennial generation. What is to live, being an affluent single professional, I would say, or being an affluent professional, because his work sometimes have kids and babies, but being an affluent urbanite. So for me, when I see his works, I immediately relate to Starbucks, to people holding coffee cups, to the glam of living in a city, working in the corporate world, trying to stay fit. This work has an interesting story, and so the work to the yellow one, the work to my right in this case, the yellow one, this works we collect. I have a very good friend of mine. She's Xiao Kun. She is the owner of the Kun Museum. It's a private museum in Beijing. And we were talking, we saw these works I think it was in one of the Art Basels. It was Art Basel, Hong Kong. Yeah. And it was with one of my favorite galleries. And yes, I'm going to give them credit here because they are just fantastic. Kukje Gallery in Korea. Guys, that gallery is just top. The service, everything that they do. So with Kun and I, we were always talking for many years. We're talking like Julian Opie, and we were like researching for Julian Opie. Julian Opie is also very prolific. He has a studio, many works he produced, but we were trying to look for like the perfect Julian Opie, and that took us about probably like 3 years. So I was once I think it was 3 years ago. We were in Art Basel. And I was walking by and I saw this beautiful mosaic. They had like about 6 runners. And it was just gorgeous. And I remember calling Kun, and Kun said, you have to come back to the fair now. I found the work. And they said, okay, I come, like I'm busy right now, so let's go tomorrow. And then we went the following day. and the work was taken. So it was bought, and I'm like, what the hell? Like, no way. So like, yeah, I mean, we needed that work. Georgie from Cuyo, like, don't worry, we have a more body of works. No, it's like, no, it has to be this work. It's like the mosaic and everything. We're not looking for the lenticular. We want the work to be very unique. So she said, like, okay, he has produced more works in mosaics. So they show us these two works. And the moment we saw them, we're like, okay, this is beautiful. Like, this is fantastic. But the works at that time were they were in Seoul. So Kun said, like, okay, fine. So I fly to Seoul and I want to have a look at the works. So Kun flies to Seoul, sees the works, and she told me the works are fantastic. Yeah, are beautiful. Those are the works. That is it. And then she's like, okay, I'm going to acquire both of them. And I'm like, okay, fine. So, I mean, through that, eventually, that led to Kun meeting Julian. She met Julian in Tokyo in a big show that he did in Tokyo. So they met and showed the interest. Also, by the way, the studio actually helped on this exhibition because it sent me, because the photo that I got for the one to the left was like low resolution. So I asked Cuyo Gallery if it was possible to get a high resolution. So they told me that they needed to contact the studio. And I'm like, okay, they're not going to send me anything. So actually they did, and the studio came back and they actually liked the idea, liked what we're doing, the fact that these two works are going to be showed together in VR and so on. So they sent me the studio. So cheers to the studio of Julian Opie that actually facilitating this exhibition. So to finish the story about this to work. So she's in Tokyo, and she decided, like, you know what, I want to buy this work, which is the T-shirt, the yellow one. And I'm like, okay, fine. So and then time went on, and I continued working with Cuyo, and Cuyo was like, you know what, we're not showing the other work because we want these two works to be together. So if you still have an interest, let me know. And because these two works belong together, right? Because for me, they're quite contradictory. You have like the very slim, highly professional physiotherapist and perhaps the teacher. And again, I don't want to offend anybody, but the T-shirt I mean, there's a disparity perhaps on income, on lifestyles, and everything. There's a contrasting aspiration, and I found these two works very opposing, right? In terms of what the perception of urban lifestyles are, right? I mean, so the lady is a bit, is overweight, where this one is quite slim. I found this opposing force that you see, especially now in the world of Instagram, right? Like how image is driving your social interactions or your social presence. And we said, like, Kun, these works belong together; they need to be together. And Cuyo was like, look, I mean, absolutely. You guys, you know that you guys buy together. We know you guys very well. They actually know us as one because Kun and I were very good friends. We buy together. We curate together. We also, Kun was very helpful for this exhibition. I mean, she first of all decided to lend me this the artwork for the exhibition. She was very happy about it. But Kun is even for the previous one, the previous exhibition that I did, shaped by, Kun was also instrumental. I mean, Kun and I are like, she's like my sister. She gets angry at me all the time, but yeah, she's someone that is very, very important for me, especially when we appreciate art. So we decided to work these two together. So I said, like, you know what, I'm going to buy the work. So I told Cuyo, and Cuyo said, like, yeah, don't worry, that's fine. We want the work to be with you. We're not going to show it to anybody. Take your time, etc. Just count on it. The work is yours. So eventually we worked, and then I remember that was the last fair that I attended. That was in Taipei last year. So they took the work to Taipei. They show it there. There was a lot of interest because Julian Opie is pretty much very popular globally. And then by then I was already telling Georgie from Cuyo that I wanted to do the show with the two works together, and then they were like super excited. Cuyo was super supportive of the idea, and now look, it happened. So that's the story of the works. But the importance of these works together is because it presents what millennials have, that the amount of wealth that they have accumulated, that there is a very wealthy generation, and you can clearly see it in the city dwellings, in their urbanite lifestyles. And that, and not only this works, but any work by Julian Opie, especially the human figures, it really resonates to that, to how wealthy the millennial generation it is. That works. Julian Opie just opened a work here in Hong Kong. Is in one of the, is connecting to, there's like an office complex called Pacific Place, and they have two towers. So they have Pacific Place 2, and there's the shopping mall, and then you have Pacific Place 3, the other tower. And those two buildings are connected by an underground tunnel, or walk-through tunnel. And the tunnel is quite long. It's probably, I don't know, 400 meters or so, 300 meters. I mean, it's long. It's a long walk. And he did this series of works. It's about, I counted them. It's 51 works. I think 51. Yeah, 51. It's about 50. It's just these human figures. It's the whole tunnel. It's absolutely beautiful. He has another one in the Conrad Hotel, which is in the same complex. The work is absolutely stunning, and it resonates with people. People walking by see the works. I mean, because they have this kind of like a conveyor belt, because the walk is quite long. So probably it's about 100 meters. So people are actually on the conveyor belt, and you see these works going the other direction. It's just beautiful. But for me, it resonates that the wealth that this generation has. This is the wealthiest generation to date, and globally, no, in general terms. And you can see that how urban the cities have become. The city centers, especially. I was reading an article on The Economist about the city centers in biggest cities right now, that are how expensive it is to live in the city centers, because it's hip, right? It's cool. It's a Starbucks. It's flashy. It's all about this imagery. It's corporate. It denotes success. It denotes just escalating into the corporate ladder, etc. And I think what these two works tell. Yep.
I have a little bit of a different perspective on
Sure.
Just on the perception of wealth. I definitely see when you're downtown, all these BMWs and very flashy cars, and the perception of a lot of wealth around these urban centers. I actually lived in like downtown as well, and I found it so interesting this one time when I went to the bank machine, because everybody was driving up with BMWs and with all these, the newest fashions. I went to the ATM machine, and I pulled out my bank statement, and I threw out the receipt, but there was all these other receipts that were just lying around the ATM machine, and
Yes.
they were all, it said, $1,000 in your bank account, $500 in your bank account, negative balances in your bank account. So it was so conflicting for me, because everybody that was walking in and out of that bank looked very wealthy, but then all of these little bank receipts that were just thrown all around the ATM machine were showing something far different from that. So I do
picture where people like to wear their money, and they like to maintain appearances, and they
Absolutely.
put everything
That's,
on like physical appearances, clothes and cars and things like
That's
that.
part of
But in
the culture
reality,
now too.
Yeah, they don't have too many assets in the reality.
but they don't
That
have
is
wealth. They have debt.
Mm.
They have
It's a representation of what you can
They
buy
have
credit.
credit
now.
cards,
They
and they have loans and things. I agree with Brandon. It's true, especially in North America.
Mhm.
That you make a very good point.
Debt-based
I-
perception of
Big
wealth.
debt. Yes, true.
Yes.
To maintain these appearances. Yeah.
Mhm.
I think, and probably when we go into Superflat Expressionism, because I absolutely agree with you, and this is the reason why these works are resonating, because for me the millennials is a generation that has really made of reality a perception, that the underlying reasons are still quite quite
Mhm.
are quite shaky. There's still a hollow shell. That's why you see like the works of Sam of Prairie, the nostalgic, and now we're going to Superflat. The reality is that the world is still tough. It's really tough. Its depth is fueled by depth and it's expensive. But there's this necessity, and you see the works with Julian Opie everywhere. This necessity of projecting certain. Projecting well-being by which the currency is wealth, right? And this is the reason why I find these works quite conflicting, because you have, like as I was trying to say, you have the teacher, which is, I mean, someone in general terms, someone of a lower income relative to, for example, a physiotherapist, and she's a bit overweight, she's a bit more aspiring than this other one that is a bit more well off, and is this perception of, even if I'm right or wrong, this is actually what the works together, at least to me, are trying to tell me, that perception that might be right or wrong, but
there's a very subtle thing too with the gaze of the figure on the right looking down, almost in
absolutely,
like not feeling, I don't know, just that gaze looking down, and then when you contrast that to the physiotherapist whose head is high, looking up, just those very subtle differences that actually speak a lot as well to the points that you were making.
You are absolutely right. This even the confidence. This is the reason. Being overweight, looking down. This is less. There's a sense of lower confidence than this work. She's tall. She's standing firm. And it's this perception, and this is the reason why, for example, Kuja was so happy to actually have these two works to be shown together. And for me, these works belong to each other. So we made that promise with Kun that we will always stick to these two works. These two works are like our little babies. They will be together. We're going to keep them. And if we have to decide, either of us decide on something on this work, we need to sound it with each other, because these works belong together.
Yeah.
So that's one reason
I have a question about that. This collaboration you did with this person who owned a museum, a private museum. Are you allowed to create new rules around these two artworks and to decide together as an agreement that if this work is shown in an exhibition, it has to be exhibited with this artwork as well? Are you allowed to do it, or the artist can say no or yes? Or
well, for the artist, I think the artist was very supportive. That Kuja actually sounded the idea, and they were like quite excited. I think at the moment it's very informal, because Kun and I are very good friends. But I think I can suggest that, hey, Kun, why don't we just make sure that if we exhibit these works at the future, they need to be exhibited together, because that they are the opposites. Because even when I was positioning the works, should I put them opposite? Should I put it because at one point I was putting the other way around, they're running towards each other, and I'm like, no, they need to go. I think it is more meaningful if I put them. They are running away from each other, which I think this is the final outcome, because it's actually what I wanted to present, how distant these urbanite lifestyles are. And when I was doing the video, when I was writing, and I was like, I made this, when I was trying to explain this in a 3-minute video, is impossible. So I decided just to keep it short. So you know what, I'm going to leave. I told that to Sam. I'm going to leave that to the talk, because it's complex. I found these works very complex. And this is the reason why people misinterpret Julian Opie. I had a conversation with someone not so long ago, saying, Julian Opie is more like a Superflat. And I think I found his works quite critical. They have a lot of depth. But it could be just me. But I found these two works really important. And this took about 3 or 4 years looking for the perfect Julian Opies, and we found them. So it's a beautiful curatorial exercise with my friend. So if you ever have the opportunity to go to Beijing, go to the Kun Museum. It's a nice area. So Kun is like super friendly. Just tell her that you're my friend, and she will show you around. And Kun is like super cool.
We all have connections in Beijing and Hong Kong, just like that.
Yes. Then let's move into this one. And this one, this work is interesting, and that for me is the breakdown into the digital realm. So these are two urban, I call it urban abstractions, because they depict photos of cities and then they construct them into these figurative elements. But for me, what they try to convey is the move. I won't say the abandonment because the cities is still there, but is the move into digital nativism. The cities are now becoming more that the city dwelling is now more technologically driven. Yeah, you depend more on your Uber Eats and your Deliveroos and your Amazons and your internet banking and etc. So the digital component is far more important. Yeah, than it used to be before. So, and I think Liu Xinjian is an artist from China, good friend of mine, fantastic guy. The guy is like the funniest guy. He's like the guy that is always happy. He's always like in a very good mood. He's always happy. Every time I go to Shanghai, he's always to eat lamb skewers and drink beer until we are like done. He's a great guy. And I really love his work. He's actually quite well known. He did some collaborations with Nike. He's doing now with Rolls-Royce. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that. Okay, sorry. Yeah, he's doing some collaboration. Sorry. Yeah, so he's doing okay with the Nike. Yes, because that was last year. He did one with Nike. He did the shoes, which I found that he gave me a couple of shoes with my name on it. But he does that. He all his works is about that. Is doing this breakdown of cities, city landmarks, and he breaks it down into these in these lines and dots, right? Which for me, what it's like a digital or reconstruct. He takes a city. One is the Serpentine Galleries, which is a very iconic art institution, and just breaks it down into some sort of like a digital interpretation, right? Which you can tell now. You can actually visit these galleries online, right? I mean, now it is becoming, and that will be the trend going forward. Similar to this one. This one is the Tate Modern. This one, the one in red, which I love at the moment. I mean, these two works at the moment are in my at home. So the people that have been to my house, they have actually seen the works. I have it in my living room, and so I don't know if you can recognize the river and then the museum is on the top. You can see the
on the
top. Yeah. Cool. So he makes these deconstructions. He takes this iconic, and he has works all over the world. He did like one which is about Hong Kong, the Hong Kong skyline. The work is about like 11 meters long. It's huge. It's just massive. That work is, and it's all these lines. Now he's experimenting with a lot of fluidity. His latest works are not necessarily like as rigid as this one, but has a lot of like a fluid lines. So I recommend you go to his Instagram. He's adding plenty of fluidity. He did one for the last Venice Biennale about the Milan Cathedral. He showed it with the European Cultural Center. And for me, he's one artist that is remarkable. Is that his capacity to that idea, that conceptually that idea, right? Like he takes an image of a city that is iconic and I break it down into some sort of like a. I mean, certainly it cannot be consumed. But actually, the rendering he does it in a computer, so you can actually say that is breaking it down into some sort of like a digital mean. Because he takes the photo, he makes all the squares and dots by hand, and he puts it in a computer to print it, and then he actually makes a huge printout on the computer, and then he puts it on the canvas, and from there he puts these layers. So he put one like he puts tape everywhere, and then puts the whites, and then tapes it again and puts the reds, and then tapes it again, and then so on. And the more colorful the works are, the more complex. It can take months when to do the works. I remember the work that he showed at the Venice Biennale. I peeled like 3 things because I wasn't to his studio when he was halfway through. His works are super complex. He cannot do this without a computer. He needs to do the whole rendering and the expansion and everything through a computer. So you can say that, you can relate that indeed he's deconstructing or reconstructing or recoiling. That's the word that I use on the video. taking the cities and break them down and recall them back into sort of like a digital interpretation. And I think this is actually what I see that is happening today with urbanism, especially by millennials, and I think it's going to become more evident with the dance generation, as I call it, the Gen Z guys, the TikTok generation, which they're going to rely that their city, that their urbanism is going to be far more digital than the one for the millennials. And I think this is actually what at least these two works resonate to me, is that shift toward digital nativism.
Yeah.
So fantastic works. I love them. Yep.
One thing that I find so interesting is how much of a digital process that's involved with this work. As soon as I saw it, I immediately was thinking Keith Haring. And
Oh yeah, true.
it just jumped right to me. And then hearing how and Keith Haring, he just goes and he starts, and it's this very, very manual process, and it ends up filling up this entire kind of all over composition. And then this is such a digital process, and there's some aesthetic similarities that comes with through that. I just find it interesting how different your starting points can be, but then how you can have some sort of visual overlap.
Yeah, that's interesting. I never really associated with Keith Haring. He has been actually associated with certain movement. There's research on Xinjian. He's more related to Piet Mondrian in the whole the style movement.
Yeah.
The whole Zero movement. He actually exhibited with some of the older Zero artists.
Early Piet Mondrian. I could see that some of his earlier works. Once I got to his later stage stuff, then it was more kind of like larger planes of color. But like specifically, one of his first, the piece where he started to do the tree and he started to break it down with the lines. That I can totally see how that's the still influence. Interesting. I never really thought about it. I never really thought about Keith Haring, but just like the zigzags, and like the geometric and just the shapes, white on red color palette.
Block shapes.
Yeah, could be.
Mm-hmm.
Could be.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
I will let him know.
Sorry to interrupt, but I'm going to get going. I just wanted to say thank you so much for.
No. Thanks for coming.
You did a really nice job. I appreciate it.
See you, Ray.
No, thanks for coming.
Bye, Bren.
Have fun.
Talk to you later. Bye.
Okay, no, cheers. Okay, no, I will certainly let him know. I see him more related to the style movement, but yeah, I will talk to him. I mean, he's a very good friend of mine, so I will talk to him and I will tell him that there's this feedback, and maybe he's going to tell me perhaps. I know that he's a big admirer of Mondrian. That was a big influence. Also, he studied in the Netherlands. He lived there for many years in the Netherlands, so he got the style or the style movement. My pronunciation is really bad, but it's a fantastic art. For me, it's the breakdown of my interpretation is that one, is that the shift toward digital nativism. Mm-hmm. And then let's go into this one, because this one was by far, it could be the most controversial works, which is not only about the works, but it's about the entire concept. Yeah. So this is actually what I call Superflat Expressionism. And on this one, I have to go, I went deep into the rabbit hole of psychology. I think to put these works together, I had to read extensively about Carl Jung and the whole archetypes, and I will tell you why. And of course, I investigated not only on these works, but the drivers of Superflat, and even from post-war Japanese art to Murakami and Koz and so on. And I will elaborate on that, but I find these works very profound. The whole Superflat movement, which is, in my opinion, is badly. What you read about it is people are, which is actually the point of Superflat, that they don't want Superflat is meant to be an artworks that are not conveying any feel. There's no depth than just a simple expression. But I think there's something hindering behind all these super flat expressions, and from that one, actually you need to pretty much go back to Japan, especially the post-war, and how they actually cope with the post-war trauma. And because I do see that life for millennials is tough. It's not as it was advertised on TV, how they were growing up. So there was some sort of like a little trauma that they needed to overcome, and they found, especially when you see art.
No,
Awesome.
I'm actually,
I guess
I'm actually amazed at how he can do all this with the Oculus Go for as long as he does. Like just the battery life on it and having so many people in the room. I know it's like it's incredible. No, but it's incredible. Like the computer chip in an Oculus Go is like it's tiny. Like the compute power that you're working with, it's mind blowing that he can be leading an exhibition tour of all these people. It's incredible.
The only thing I find with it is a little bit blurry. Like I just find like the resolution is not quite high enough, so it gives me a little bit of a headache after a little bit.
Sorry, I'm back. I think my headset is overheating, so I'll be quick.
Yeah.
Yeah. So these four works is it's three Asian artists. One is Yeong Baek, which is right now living in New York, and she did these two works with these Lego avatars, which are quite simple, are quite cute, are quite sweet. Then we have this one, which is phenomenal. This artist is also one of Japan's hottest artists at the moment, Kyne. He did this right now. He just opened this in the Fukuoka Art Museum. He did this beautiful mural, and he comes from the manga anime style, and have this beautiful girl. And on this one, I have to research. I have to watch films like 400 Days of Summer and Elizabethtown, all the Manic Pixie Dream Girl, to really understand this work, which is a projection of perhaps someone's insecurity, that you want a perception to be like your ideals to be absolutely perfect and flat, and to be able to actually service you in a way, the way that the gaze of this girl is absolutely stunning, is so beautiful, is so calming, is just too perfect. In any way, she's just like, is youthful, is sweet, is calm, is composed, is too perfect to a point that even the girl himself has no depth. It's like servicing me, which you understand a lot of when you understand a lot of like the graphic novels of Japan, especially the manga. They had that projection of Superflat or the works of Murakami is to service the person who's observing it, but the character in itself has very little depth. And I do see that with this work. This work is mesmerizing, but it's mesmerizing to me. But but to the girl, I do see her that it has no particular depth as a character. It's just flat, right? And for me, this work was like, this is something that I see generationally speaking, especially the world on Instagram these days, is these projections, right? Is constantly projecting a perception that is to service the consumer, but there's no much depth behind those Instagram models and etc. It's flat. It's a flat reality, and that's the reason I think Superflat resonates so much, especially with millennials. Works like Marasaki, Cause. That resonance comes from the need from the need to consume that good projection, that make the feel good projection, and not necessarily to seek depth in what you consume. Because, for example, you can see on Instagram, you see all these Instagram models, right? It's all photoshopped and so on, but nobody's questioning that. Why? Because apparently there's not even a necessity to question it. You just want to feel good. And that is a very good critique. I mean, I this is my interpretation to Superflat. If there's an art creator, please, I'm more than happy to discuss this, because Superflat, for me, it grew from a necessity to cope certain internal insecurity, certain inner introspections. And the works of Murakami are like that. I think Murakami, when he said that he was broke, it was a very bold move. He came very sincerely because everybody thought he was this very successful, happy guy doing all these things, and realized that the guy has depth, has all these different troubles and so on. I'm a big fan of Murakami, his early works, the one that have more depth about the ghosts and so on. The flowers.
He said he was like broke internally, like emotionally.
No, he went bankrupt. Well, I'm sure that because of the movie, but I'm sure that had an effect because I think he was scaling down on his gallery, which is a project with Kyne, which I know he's doing a work with now with Perton.
When did he announce that? I didn't hear.
It was about like 3 months ago. Yeah,
a few months ago. Yeah. That's such a shame. I hope that. Well, there's a lot of incredibly great, incredibly talented and amazing people that go broke, and then they just kind of keep on rolling from there too.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what I think he's doing.
What's that?
I think that's what I think he's doing.
Yeah,
it seems like he's just rolling along. Like he's got a new show out right now, and I think he just released a bunch of prints as well. So I'm sure. The guy's a genius, and I think, but if he goes back to his roots, to his depth, then I think he's going to find a new force. But if he keeps doing the commercial stuff, the flowers and so on, things that have no depth at all, it ends like cause, like everybody just like dumping.
It becomes a factory, just a production process as opposed to thing.
And I think he's going to that. Like I'm a big believer of Murakami. He's a great guy. So this is the second work, and then this is the third work. And I want to finish with this work, which is, in my opinion, is very important. And this is actually the reason I decided to close with this work, because this work is from a young street artist in Hong Kong called Lousy. For anybody that has been in Hong Kong, you probably have seen his tags, his little eyes, the eye that is, you see that eye, you see it all over Hong Kong. He goes and tags the city all over the place. Lousy is a very good friend of mine. I talked to him. I mean, obviously, he helped me, assisted me with again, all the artists that I'm showing here, they know that I'm doing this show, and they actually supported me in one way or another. And with with Lousy, he needs to stay incognito. So with Lousy, the guy is like, he's an art lover by itself. His greatest inspiration is, I went to his studio. His greatest inspiration is Den Bosch. And he also the likes of Den Bosch and Matisse. They're like his driving force for his works. But he's also, he come from, like I said, like a middle income family, not necessarily able to afford art schools or anything like that. And he said, like, I have no means to make it big in the art world because it's so unreachable. Yeah, it's so difficult that the only canvas that I really have is the streets. And I start doing all this tagging and making all dynamic and try to make it works that resonate with people. And I think that is the common trend where you see with a lot of like a street artist, like a really hardcore graffiti artist, right? That is that necessity to reach with the means they have, which they normally have very little. They don't necessarily come from wealthy families or so on. And his works are like fun, are quick. I find that they really light up the city when you see these eyes and running men. And he has this body of works that he actually painted a lot of graffitis on trucks, like delivery trucks, lorries. And they look so fun when you see these trucks going around Hong Kong. You see this eye. Sorry?
It's a touring exhibition if you graffiti a truck.
Yes, pretty much. But it looks fun. I love it. I really love when I see a truck and you see his running man or his eye or something going around. It makes the city alive, right? It
gives more character, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I think that is something that for me, it really resonates with millennials, that millennials is a very resilient generation that despite all the struggles, they find ways to continue to not to feel constrained in any way. They want to still go ahead and find ways to express new things and do new things and so on. So I'm a big fan of Lousy. I find it a really important, in my opinion, a very important artist in the Hong Kong scene, especially. Very influential for what he has done on the streets. And he did this work. He's actually right now. He's actually in my bedroom. I love it. I found that so much fun. Is the fluidity, the movement. I know that he has an inspiration. He's very compared to Keith Haring a lot. The guy doesn't care. I mean, I think also quite different because for him is the trace, his lines. What I like about him is that you can actually, and I have done it many times. I have asked him to do one line. He makes that line, and immediately I know that it's a lousy line. That's the reason I relate this to him. I compare him more towards Matisse because he has that his trace, one line, the way that he does it. It's extremely characteristic of him. So that is what it conveys. I know his story. I know that the struggle and his aspiration, and that the talent that he has, and how difficult it is to make it to the art market. And for me, that was like, yeah, that is kind of like the conclusion of what this generation it is. It turns out that it's a generation that is piled in debt, that is very difficult to access the world that we see today, that like of higher education and in the glam that we see on cities, on urbanism, like the comment that we were saying earlier about like all these receipts with overdrafts and so on. It's that there's people that actually relate to that. There's people that are willing to express, to go through that struggle and still produce works that resonate with people. So this work is, in that sense, I found it flat because he's not necessarily trying to tell us what the struggle is. He's just trying to present something that resonates funny, candidly with people. And I think he does a fantastic job. I have a series of his works. I'm actually donating. There's an institution here called Parasite, and they do a fundraising. And I'm donating 2 works. One of those works I think is very important. Is he did a work. Again, he's a big lover of arts, and he has in the El Prado Museum. There's this work by Goya, Saturn devouring his son. I don't know if you have seen it. It's quite.
Oh, it's the best.
Yeah,
It's my favorite one of his.
And he did a work in graffiti just on that. Like he just decided because the guy studies art, he loves, but he's an aficionado of art. So he's like, okay, this one. He did one from Rembrandt and so on. It's like, I mean, because it's Goya is one of my greatest. He did this line, and actually I just bought it. I thought the work was so important, and I went to talk to the people in Parasite. It turns out that the curator now of Parasite, she used to work for the Peggy Guggenheim, and I said, like, look, this is my story about this artist. I'm more than happy to donate this work for your fundraising because I found it so important. And she actually loved it. She understands the body of works, and I'm more than happy to actually present this artist, bring the artist up, because I personally believe that the guys with incredible talent, but more with this perception of how reality it is. Like, especially I think because he's so ingrained into street art and how tough the streets are. Not in the sense that they're insecure, but in the sense of how difficult it is for someone that is from the streets to become mainstream, right? And I think that for me is like the reality of this generation that is even tougher to like the first generation that we saw, the nostalgic, the silent generation, the 50s and 60s, is much tougher today for a person that is is not born into wealth to make it into the bigger world. It's far tougher than it was when the world was a bit more uniform back in the 60s. So that's the reason I decided to conclude this show with this work, because that's the story that resonates with me. So awesome. I don't know. This is it. This is the show. So
really nice.
That was a great tour.
Yeah,
so
very informative.
So yeah,
if we get hand tracking going, then we can clap.
Yeah, let me know what you guys think. I'm more than happy to hear, especially your thoughts. Especially you guys, most of you could be millennials. Do let me know if it resonates, if I probably missed my mark. But this is my interpretation.
Okay.
Okay, I don't know. Do we have any questions or anybody on the? Actually, we didn't
live
invite.
stream.
Yes, sorry, we forgot about you guys.
Yeah. They can't hear you though, right, Justin?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So Facebook world, if any of you have any questions for Jacobo before we close down the live stream, please post them right now, and we'll answer any questions there if any come up in the next minute or so. It was it was an incredible question, but every time you do one of the tours, I just get such a greater depth of the work.
Oh, thank you very much.
And especially doing this in a room predominantly of millennials, I feel like a lot of it was very much so on point, and it was really nice that we could kind of openly discuss other parts there too. So yeah, it's nice to have that open dialogue.
No, thank you very much. I take that as a compliment, because it was a big effort. This one was quite a big effort. This exhibition, it took me 4 or 5 months, probably more, to actually write it down and sound it around. So if it that's actually my goal as a collector, and especially when I'm writing these stories, I want stories to resonate with people. So if it resonates, if you feel that you relate to the works and to the story that I'm trying to tell, I mean, I take that as a compliment. It means that I'm on the right track.
I've also heard about the essay that you had written, that there wasn't enough space on the wall for it.
Yeah.
So I would actually really, really love to read it personally myself. And if you'd be okay with it, we can post it right on the Artgate VR blog for anybody else. If train of thought.
Yes, actually, I posted on my website. If you go to my website, is the whole paper is the whole research is, or the most extensive curatorial note is there. Yeah, I'm more than happy to share the link.
Yeah,
but it's on my website. You go to my Instagram. There's a link on the bio, and you can just go there and then read the most extensive. Then I approach items like TV, and where I see that was the starting point for me. Television was the starting point, and now that millennials are now pretty much adulting or quite grounded into adulthood, I can see that upbringing through TV is now being resonating into politics, into art expression, into society, into urbanism, everything.
Yeah.
It's very uniform. I do find, especially when you travel, I used to travel prior to COVID quite extensively.
You're traveling right now.
Different. Yes. And one thing that I observe in the different, when you go from Asia to the Middle East to Europe to South America, is that the cities are very uniform. Like you find a Starbucks everywhere, you find McDonald's pretty much everywhere, and you have the same some aspiring generation that they want to escalate the corporate ladder, look good, buy this trend, look happy and trendy. Is very uniform. Even in China, that is a bit, or even in Russia, that is more closed. Russia is actually, I think, is a bit more even into that than China. It's that necessity to fit in, but fit in now in a global mean. I mean, you can see it, for example, when I talk to people in China now, they're like the biggest tourism market, and when they travel, they want to fit into like how is to be in Paris, and how is to be in this particular, how is to be in London, how is to be in New York, and they dress in a certain way, and
the perfect picture that you can post off to social media.
Absolutely.
I find it so funny when you go to a place and someone just goes, take their picture and walk away. They don't actually enjoy that beautiful place that they're in.
That is the downside.
And they can find that same picture online too, which is the worst part.
Yeah. Okay.
So thanks everybody in Facebook, I guess. Thanks, Sam. I think Sam was one of the persons in. And really, guys, thank you very much. Thanks for attending. This means a lot to me. I'm always trying to write, because I want to write for people. So I'm glad that you guys enjoyed the talk.